It's Indiana and Oregon, part 2 in the Peach Bowl of the college football playoff semifinals. Indiana tries to double down while Dan Lanning and the Ducks try to get over a hurdle of their own.
You are Locked On College Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome in. It is a Locked On College crossover of Hoosiers and Ducks.
I am here. I'm also here. Just got to say that for the audio feed. I am here.
I was going to introduce Spencer McLaughlin of Locked On Ducks. I was going to do it. It was just going to be in the third segment in the outro. That's where it was going to be. We have put our friendship aside, and we have become mortal enemies once again for the second time of this college football season, because it's Indiana and it's Oregon, the Hoosiers and the Ducks. One of the greatest games of the regular season in the Big Ten. We get a rematch of it in the college football playoff. We're going to talk about how the Big Ten can win another national title and just make the entire SEC want to quit football altogether. We're also going to talk about what improvements need to be made from the first game to this game, and also who has more pressure to win this game as well. But Spencer, you couldn't ask for a better matchup, man. How awesome is this going to be in the Peach Bowl in Atlanta Friday night? It's the Hoosiers and the Ducks.
Yeah, I can't wait to curl up in the fetal position and watch this game, as my lifelong dream could potentially be realized if they can get past the number one team in college football. I can't wait, Goins. I'm so excited. I'm only 20% joking with that remark, but I am excited to watch the game, because if I took this flag down behind me and put up my neutral arbiter of college football flag.
Oh, you still have that, huh?
That I do. I haven't gotten rid of it yet, and because I still got that other show here at the network too, but. The thing that is so exciting about this game is the first one was indeed, as you talked about, a great matchup, which is odd because I have heard, I don't know how many people say how Oregon was dominated by Indiana in the first go-around.
10-point loss in your home field.
Yeah, dominated. Absolutely. No, Indiana dominated Alabama. That's what dominating looks like. That's what controlling the entire game looks like. Indiana beat Oregon at Autzen, which does indeed give me pause to jump immediately on to telling everybody, take Oregon in the points. It's automatic. They're overreacting. Indiana's frauds. They're not. They're just not. Indiana's a really good football team that doesn't beat themselves. And Oregon has got a bunch of talent all over the field. And oh, by the way, is coming off the best defensive performance in the history of Oregon football. That is not an exaggeration. They haven't shut out a team in a bowl game since 1917 when they did it to Penn. Not Penn State, just Penn.
Oh, mighty Penn.
And they did it in the college football playoff against the Big 12 champions. And yeah, they were a slight favorite. They actually closed as an underdog in the game, for whatever that's worth to people, because some folks said, well, they were supposed to win that game. They were favored. Well, they actually didn't end up as favorites when the line came to a close. So, yeah, incredible defensive performance. The questions I have for Oregon are on the offensive side of the ball, and really on the offensive side of the ball only. I think I know exactly what to expect from Oregon's defense against Indiana's offense. I don't have that many questions, really. I'm not saying they're going to blank Indiana, just to be clear. I just know what it's going to look like, what the keys are, and kind of how this will go, but I think there will be a lot of really good back and forth because, as I've said a lot, Goins, Oregon's defense was not the problem in this first matchup.
Yeah, it was. And Indiana's defense played outstanding in the first matchup, because people tend to forget that one of the touchdowns Oregon scored was a pick six, right? And so Indiana's defense played extremely well in that game. Weather was kind of a factor, but not really down the stretch. But Indiana's defense played well, and they've only gotten better. Look what they did against Alabama. Look what they did against Ohio State. And so I'm not concerned about Indiana's defense at all, the same way you're not concerned about Oregon's defense. So I think it really does come down to which offense is able to execute, which quarterback doesn't turn the football over. Fernando Mendoza threw one pick last time. Dante Moore, believe he threw two last time. And that was the difference where Indiana's able to capitalize on those things. And so we'll talk about improvements that need to be made from game one to game two in just a moment. But you proposed an interesting question before we hit record on this show, and it's the question of who has more pressure to win this game? Is it Oregon who's trying to overcome the, jokes of not having a national title under their belt with Dan Lanning, who's one of the best coaches in college football? Or is it Indiana who's trying to cap off the historic season, probably the greatest one of all time, if they are able to win it? I think it's Indiana. And I'm not saying that because I'm the Indiana guy. I think the Hoosiers have more pressure because of how they beat Ohio State and because of how they beat Alabama. I think everybody has jumped on the bandwagon. Everybody wants to see it. Everybody is waiting for the next beatdown that Indiana can hand out. And I'm not calling it a beatdown at all against Oregon. I don't believe that happens. But I think people are waiting for it. I think people want this Indiana team to win it all. I think Cignetti, because the way he talks as well, I think the Hoosiers have more pressure to win this game.
That's where my head starts when I ponder the answer to the question that I posed.
It's a good question.
It's not where my head actually ends up. And there are a couple of reasons for that. Number one, Dan Lanning has been at Oregon longer than Cignetti has been at Indiana.
True.
And I believe right now, pound for pound, Cignetti is the best head coach in all of college football. The reason I can still sit here and say I think there is actually more pressure from a national standpoint for Oregon to win the game is they've been at this longer. Indiana is new kid on the block. And look, Dan Lanning has gotten Oregon further than he ever has before. They haven't been in this position. Last year it ended in the quarterfinal. The year before they didn't win a conference championship. They made the game. The year before they didn't do that. It has been a progression and a darn good one. And I do believe Dan Lanning will win a national championship as Oregon's head coach. Maybe it'll be this year. Maybe it'll be 2026. Maybe he'll make us wait until 2027 or 2028. We'll just see how the cookie crumbles here. Oregon has been in the national championship picture as a program for encroaching 2 decades at this point. They made it in the 2010 season, and ever since then, that's kind of been the standard where everyone in Eugene and Oregon fans in Portland or wherever they're from, they all look at the program and say, well, I've seen them get up to this level. When are you getting back to that? And sure, there have been a lot of exciting wins and exciting games, but my Oregon fans, my everydayers have heard me say this before. Oregon is the Rory McIlroy of college football. Their career, if you just look at it,
that's a good comparison,
is the envy of almost every other program. But because you see how much potential there is and how close they have come to getting to the top, everything that's short of that, even if it's really good, Rory winning the Wells Fargo, I think earlier this year or the year before, for most people, that's a big achievement. For Rory McIlroy, it feels, Rory won at Pebble Beach earlier this year. You could even see it on his face. And he was just kind of like, this is nice. This is fun. But we all knew what the real goal was. And so it was when. And
I expect Dan Lanning to hit his knees and cry on the middle of the field if he wins the national championship. I expect that to be duplicated.
There will be more than a few tears in Oregon country amongst the fans. I can assure you of that, because it would be something that they've waited for a really long time. So that's why I still land on, from a program standpoint, Lanning's been at Oregon longer. The investment at Oregon is top tier in winning a national championship. There's some pressure because Phil Knight's getting older, and he's been a huge part of Oregon, of course, and has wanted to see this for a really long time. And they've come really close, and they've been really good, and they haven't gotten there yet. Indiana's in year 2. I mean, we're talking 2 seasons ago, Goins. Indiana's a bottom dweller in the Big Ten, and now we're talking about them having more pressure than Oregon to win a national championship. I don't think that's the case. I think Indiana should be favored in the game, by the way, but I can't land on Indiana has more pressure to win a national championship than Oregon. They've been trying to do it for 2 years, really, and Oregon's been trying for over 15.
Yeah, there's a lot of pressure, a lot of history on the line for Indiana and Oregon. Round 2 in the Peach Bowl from downtown Atlanta. And game 1 was awesome, but things have to change for both teams if they want to come out on top. We talk about the improvements that have to be made. Coming up next on this Locked On Crossover. This Locked On crossover of Hoosiers and Ducks is brought to you by FanDuel. Fridays already feel different during basketball season, and FanDuel is making them even better. Every Friday night, including this one before the game kicks off, you can do some basketball fun with FanDuel before all those games tip off as well. They're giving fans a new way to kick off the weekend with NBA Happy Hour. NBA Happy Hour is your official pregame, a limited time window where special offers drop right inside the FanDuel app before the action begins. Fridays from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time have become appointment viewing with NBA Happy Hour. It's easy to check all the weekly specials that they have before tip-off and make a move before the window closes. And it just adds a little extra energy to some Friday night basketball without having to really overthink it. So before tip-off, check the FanDuel app and see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour. Every Friday from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, a little basketball, a little action, and a whole lot of Friday energy. That's NBA Happy Hour, only on FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. All right, we continue on this Locked On crossover of Hoosiers and Ducks. He is Spencer McLaughlin of Locked On Ducks. I'm Jacob Goins of Locked On Hoosiers. We appreciate you being here, making us your first listen or your first watch every single day. And the number one sports podcasting network in the world. I don't know if you knew that. I don't know if people have said that yet. We're the top dogs, and it's really not even close. I say it all the time. I'm very proud of that because we're doing pretty good work, I think. And so
takes a lot of work. Takes a lot of work, and we appreciate all of you out there for helping make that the case. We can't do it without you.
Without you. And what a crazy time it is between the portal, the college football playoff. Some of us have halfway decent basketball teams to talk about as well. And so there's a lot going on around.
Must be nice.
Hey, we're not far off, brother. We're not far off. It's we're hitting a stretch where it's going to get ugly in Bloomington. But we'll talk basketball at a later date because it's round 2 of Indiana and Oregon, this time in the Peach Bowl, in the college football playoff, and the winner heads to the national championship game. And it's easy to look at Indiana, who came off with a 10-point win on the road at Oregon. This was the game, right, Spencer, where the national perception of Indiana was like, all right, they're legit. That was awesome. They're good. They're a real threat. It's easy to look at that and say, just do it again. You don't have to change anything. You beat them by 10, right? You're fine. I know it was a close game down the stretch, but don't change anything. You'll win this time again. If you do that, no, that's very wrong. You can't just take the same mentality and the same exact game plan and expect it to work out the same way. And Oregon has to change a lot of things too. And so I'll toss it to you. What does Oregon need to change, or what has already changed between the first time these two teams met and what's going to happen on Friday night in Atlanta?
Interesting narrative point before I answer that question that Oregon is facing going into this game as well for Dan Lanning. He's faced some form of question going into each of the last couple of seasons. A lot of coaches do. Going into 2023, will he win a rivalry game? Because he lost to Washington and lost to Oregon State, both in pretty brutal fashion in his first season. And then he lost to Washington again, and then he lost to Washington again, but beat Oregon State in there. And then it was, well, is he going to beat Washington? Can he win the big game when he's not facing a backup quarterback? Did that against Ohio State. Did that against Penn State in the Big Ten championship game. Well, can he get past the quarterfinal? I mean, that was such a disaster. Well, yeah, they got past the quarterfinal and dominated Texas Tech with the defense. And by the way, he's a former defense coordinator himself, so that makes it, I think, look extra good on his end. This year, in this particular matchup, I think the next hurdle for Dan Lanning to clear is being on the right side of a rematch. Because in 2023, Washington clipped Oregon twice, and in 2024, Ohio State won the more important of the two games. So here you go. You lost the one that was not as important in the regular season, certainly mattered, was at the time Indiana's biggest win ever. They have surged past that, which I think is an interesting narrative to look at from the Hoosiers standpoint. But now for Dan Lanning, it's, I can guarantee you I'll get questions. There'll be discussion about, well, anytime he's going up in a rematch, it's just he's not able to get it done. And I think it's something you have to grow as a head coach. But
what about Dan Lanning as an underdog? What do you have a stat on that? I'm definitely just throwing you.
I actually don't.
The fire right here.
I mean, Oregon hasn't been an underdog much in the last.
That's kind of my point. Yeah.
I think they were a slight underdog, maybe 1.5 points against Ohio State 2024 in the first meeting. They were an underdog in the second meeting as well, and obviously went 1-1 in those games. But how about the line flip from the first game? Oregon was minus 7.5 in the first matchup, lost by 10. Now they're a 3.5 point underdog as we record this segment. It's flipped between 3.5 and 4.5 in favor of Indiana. So yeah,
according to our friends at FanDuel.
Yeah, he's been an underdog at Washington 2023, Ohio State twice a year ago. Georgia, his first game, 17.5 points. They got beat pretty bad in that one. I think that's mostly been it because he's acquired so much talent and that factors into it a lot. But if he's going to clear that next hurdle as a coach and win the rematch here, it obviously comes down to him for sure, because a head coach is responsible at some level for everything that happens on the football field. Really, though, it's about Will Stein, Dante Moore, and Alik Terry. For Indiana fans, Alik Terry is Oregon's offensive line coach. And those three, that triangle of guys who have been phenomenal this year, all of them. No one's perfect all the time. They got clowned by Indiana. They just did. Dante Moore didn't know what he was looking at. The O-line didn't know where they were supposed to be going, or Dante Moore didn't put them into the right protections. 6 sacks, and does Indiana have a even second or third round pick on the defensive line, especially with Stephen Daly out? I haven't seen an NFL draft projection that indicates that they do. How does that happen? Scheme. They got flat out coached. They did not have the answers. Dante Moore said he wasn't in the right sort of mindset going into that game, but I think it came down to the X's and O's, and he did not see the field well. The O-line did not play particularly well, but didn't know how to pick up the blitzes, and that comes down to those three guys. They've got to get on the same page, have the answers, and figure out when Indiana shows those simulated pressure looks, how do they respond? That's the number one thing on my mind going into this rematch.
Well, if you would ask me, what does Oregon need to improve on, or what have they improved on since the first time? I've told people several times, it is the O-line play, because that game against Texas Tech, they looked phenomenal, and Dante Moore looked phenomenal. And so that is the difference. But look,
after the first quarter and only in pass protection, yes.
Yeah, but I'm still banking on Oregon to run the football, right? I mean, how many guys are they using now? 3, 4, 5 different ones that they rely on at any given time. They're like Indiana. Even if it's not working, they're still going to do it because they have to set up everything else they want to do in the passing game, right? That's how the Hoosiers run. That's how the Hoosiers operate. They're going to run the football, which they did okay against Oregon, and set up Fernando Mendoza when he needed to. But talk about something that Indiana has to improve on. Fernando Mendoza can't throw a pick six. And I know that's very nitpicky and say, hey, don't do this one specific thing, but it really is just don't turn the football over, because he's done a good job as of late and down the last couple of games. He threw one early against Ohio State, didn't come back to burn you. He's had some down the stretch where he's just put the ball in harm's way, but man, you do that again, you're going to lose. You cannot give Oregon a big-time play like that, a big-time score like that, where Dante Moore and the offense don't even have to touch the field. If Fernando Mendoza takes care of the football, which I think he will, I think Indiana's going to be just fine. Yes.
And thank you. Don't forget that this is an Oregon defense that is fresh off a ball-hawking, hungry type of game where they force 4 turnovers. Now, they didn't take advantage of them in a great way against Texas Tech, which is another concern that I have. But they had a fumble recovery, 2 interceptions from Brandon Finney, who had that pick 6 against Fernando Mendoza. The true freshman has been remarkable this year. Mm-hmm. And then what goes down as a fumble, but I'm just gonna call a literal takeaway, because that's how I describe Mateo Uyunglele, literally just grabbing the ball from Baron Morton. Yeah. Like, beats the right tackle around the edge and just says, hey, look, the ball, I'm going to take that. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Yep. And went the other way and set up Oregon's first touchdown and broke that game open because Tech had no answers for Oregon's defense in the Orange Bowl. So, yeah, definitely an Oregon defense that has been capable all season long of forcing turnovers, and in a game like this, go either way sort of contest, yeah. It sounds cliche, but it's never untrue. As you talk to a coach on or off the record at any level of football, they'll tell you, yep, turnover is going to be important.
Turnovers and penalties, right, in a game like this. And neutral side will be a little bit different. I'm fascinated to see what the crowd looks like. Mercedes-Benz is a massive stadium. I expect both Oregon fans and Indiana fans. It's a long trip for both. Definitely longer for Oregon than for Indiana. But I expect
way longer for Oregon than Indiana. How far is it? How far is it from Atlanta to Indianapolis?
I don't know. You can get a direct flight.
Yeah.
You pay that.
Yeah. Oregon fans can't get a direct flight unless they're coming out of Portland.
Oh, can't get a direct flight. You got to go stop somewhere and have a beer and then go somewhere else.
Hey, as someone who almost exclusively has non-direct flights, I'll tell you, it is mildly annoying.
It's a choice. I'm just saying it's a choice, but it's going to be a fun game. It should be a great atmosphere, and I think it will be the better of the two semifinal games. And if we get anything close to what the first game was, it's going to be awesome. But here's the good news for the Big Ten. No matter who wins this game, it will have a representative playing for a national championship and a chance to win its third in a row. In the SEC nation, SEC country, SEC fans, they simply can't stand it. We'll talk about what that means if it happens coming up next. This Locked On crossover of Hoosiers and Ducks is brought to you by Rougiet Ready. Let's talk about something that most men don't bring up, but they absolutely should. Stress from work, money, and life. It doesn't just switch off at night, right? And when it shows up at the worst possible time, Rougiet Ready is designed to help you take back control. Rougiet Ready is a next-generation prescription treatment created to support both the brain and the body so you can feel present, confident, and ready for when the moment matters. Rougiet Ready combines 3 clinically proven ingredients in 1 mint that dissolves under your tongue so it absorbs fast. And the science behind Rougiet Ready stands out. It's 3 clinically proven ingredients in 1 formula designed for both mental and physical readiness. And so it's easy to understand why 150,000 men have already made the switch. If you've been thinking about taking the next step, now is the time. Head to Rougiet.com/lockedoncollege. That's RUGIET.com/lockedoncollege to get 15% off your order for a limited time. Rougiet Ready. Feel present, feel confident, and you can feel ready. All right, final segment on this Locked On crossover of Hoosiers and Ducks, and we'll put our harsh hatred aside, Spencer. We're just such big rivals, and we hate each other so much. And I'm
surprised we've made it this far.
I am too. I wish we could just do an audio version of this show, but we can't. But we do have to put that aside for a moment because we put our Big Ten hats on for just a second because we have a representative locked in, sharpied in to play in the national championship game, which means the conference has a chance to win its third in a row. And I know you've talked quite a bit about this on Locked On College Football. We've talked about it on the Locked On Big Ten Squad. SEC country is livid, and their hopes ride on Ole Miss.
It rides on Ole Miss and Trinidad Chambliss and a staff that may or may not coach in the game.
Oh, they're so mad they can't stand it.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty incredible. And I don't think there's a world, for whatever it's worth, if Oregon doesn't win the game, where I'd root for Indiana to lose. I don't think there is. I know there's at least one team on the other side Oregon fans will have no problem rooting against, and you're either rooting against the coach that left you or the SEC. That's pretty easy in my book. And from an Oregon standpoint, I'd rather play in the conference that is continuously seen as the best in college football. That's good for recruiting. And one other thing I want to bring up with this matchup, Goins, kind of big picture that will define the game that I don't know if anybody's really mentioned at this point, but has been on my mind this week, especially after I went back and watched the Texas Tech game again. Oregon's offense in the red zone in the biggest games this year has not been very good. And
that's funny because Indiana struggled with that early in the season. They've gotten better, but that was a big problem for the Hoosiers too.
The red zone defense or offense?
Red zone offense.
Yeah. And I think that what happened in the Texas Tech game is something that was okay when Tech was outmatched on one side of the ball. But Indiana is outmatched, as we've seen, on 0 sides of the ball and plays so mistake-free. And, hasn't allowed to an opposing offense more than 15 points in a single game this year. I think the red zone is going to be so big in this. I think it's one of the biggest matchups. I haven't figured out what my keys to the game are going to be. I can tell you that protecting Dante Moore is going to be key number one, but red zone offense is probably going to be key number two. And that doesn't necessarily mean getting touchdowns every time. Oregon has to get points. Can't have it. That missed field goal at the end of the first half, Indiana probably still wins the game, but that changed the complexion, not just on the scoreboard, but from a momentum standpoint in a big way. Sappington missed, Indiana went down, made a 58-yard kick.
Yeah.
Like that I think was a huge, huge moment in that game. And against this Indiana defense, you're not going to, just like Texas Tech, it's going to be hard to get close to the end zone or get a makeable field goal. And when those opportunities are there, I expect Dan Lanning to take more of the Washington approach, where he settled for field goals consistently, and it paid off.
Stacking points rather than be aggressive.
Exactly. And I think there is a time, there is a moment where there are plenty of moments and circumstances I can think of, and I don't think it should be a blanket philosophy in any situation. I think there's a time to go for it, but Indiana's defense has been so good, and your defense is riding high and has been great. Mm-hmm. And Indiana really sustained 2 drives in the first game. Like, correct me if I'm wrong there. The last drive was legit and went right down the field. The before half didn't actually get into the scoring area. I mean, they hit a 58-yard field goal, obviously, but that wasn't a super threatening, and there wasn't a whole ton of time, and Oregon sitting in prevent, just trying to not allow a big play over the top. Like, they had 2.
The touchdown drive at the end of the first quarter, I'm looking back at it now. 9 plays, 75 yards in 5 minutes. You went and scored on that one.
Yep.
Had a field goal in the second quarter. Had the touchdown drive at the end of the third quarter. 9 plays, 75 yards. And then the one in the fourth quarter, the 12 plays, 75-yard touchdown drive there as well. So
yeah,
I would
and
three,
again,
maybe 4.
Yeah, and again, 12 plays, Indiana had to work for it. It's not like it was easy for them to get up and down the field. Now, execution has been Indiana's calling card all season long. It's been Kurt Cignetti's, I think, strongest area, and why they've been so good in a number of different types of games, including close ones. But, I think Oregon's defense is playing at an even higher level than it did then. And by the way, that was an Oregon defense that was on the field a bunch because the offense couldn't sustain a drive.
You're right about that.
And I think they got a little bit worn down, which is what Oregon just did to Texas Tech. So on the drives where you do get down the field, I think both coaches are going to look at the defense on the other side and say, that's an elite group. Yeah. And if we can put something on the scoreboard, we've got to take the chance to do that. Because I think both coaches have confidence in their kicking game right now. Oregon certainly does.
Well, I'm glad you say that, because we're not making predictions yet today. You and I are going to talk again on Friday and make our biggest predictions, talk about keys and things like that. But I do have this as a defensive low-scoring game. I really do. I have a score in mind. I'm going much lower than the first time around, which was 30-20, in case people forgot. I have this going lower than that. I'll make our predictions on Friday. But I'm fascinated that you bring up the Oregon offensive struggles in the red zone. I looked it up just to confirm. Indiana's tied with Ohio State for the best red zone defense in the country in terms of scores given up. They've only allowed 18 total scores in the red zone this season. That's just over 1 per game that they're allowing. 1.2 is the technical math that Indiana defensively is giving up points in the red zone. So, if you're Oregon, I agree. If you get down there, take the points. And I think you're right. I think Indiana will do the exact same thing. I think points are at a premium this time around is what my prediction will be. But we are going to talk again on Friday. But since we won't talk again between now and then, the other playoff game is on Thursday. So, quick prediction: Ole Miss and Miami. Do you have?
No, I haven't prepped enough for that to make a prediction yet. Not gonna go there. I will take this chance to just share one more thought about what I was just alluding to. It's been against the best defensive coordinators that Oregon has faced, where the red zone offense has not always been stellar. And you think about the Washington game. Yeah. Indiana's defense is much better, but Ryan Walters, probably a top 10-ish defensive coordinator in all of college football up there. And Oregon moved the ball down the field and then couldn't score. And then Texas Tech, their DC, came over from Houston. He's been great this year, could be a finalist for the Broyles Award. They moved the ball down the field and could not punch it into the end zone. And Indiana, the only touchdown that they scored on offense was on an explosive, right? It was a 40-ish yard touchdown to Malik Benson. Yeah. So they didn't actually drive the ball down the field and find a way to get into the end zone there. And I just think that what Oregon has struggled doing down there is not just one issue. It's been self-inflicted wounds against Texas Tech, play calling, execution, miss an open guy. It's been a number of different things. But if you have a drive that goes down the field, I just do not think either team really, from an emotion and momentum standpoint, can go down against a defense of this caliber and give them a stop. Oregon's defense, what feels better as a defense than giving up a drive, holding to a field goal try, and then they miss?
Yeah.
Oregon did that early in the Texas Tech game. How'd the defense play after that? Pretty well?
Pretty well. Good. Yeah.
Pretty darn well. So we can wrap it there for today and finish up on Friday.
I think it's a good point, though. I really do. Again, I think points are at a premium in this game. I think it's a defensive slugfest. We'll talk more about this on Friday, go a little bit deeper into the matchups and things on differences from game 1 to game 2, and of course, make our predictions for Indiana and Oregon. He is Spencer McLaughlin of Locked On Ducks. I'm Jacob Goins of Locked On Hoosiers. Make sure you subscribe to us on your YouTube channels or however you find us on audio. You can follow us there. Turn on those notifications so you never miss any episodes of our shows, because we have a lot going on right now between the playoffs, transfer portal, basketball, you name it. We're covering it all on our respective channels. So we are both back tomorrow for Hoosiers and Ducks fans. Stay safe, and we'll talk to you later.